Hi, everybody. As we're coming on in here, welcome to today. We're just letting the participants join in. We'll start in about 30 seconds or so. So come on in and we'll get going. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Ready to start, everybody? Okay. Hi, welcome to our session on using written response items and MDTP diagnostic data today, our webinar. My name is Kimberly Samaniego, and I'm the director of MDTP. And I'd like to introduce our panelists and our presenters today. So first of all, we have Terry Gibbs is presenting. So Terry is our UCLA outreach facilitator. So she works with the users in the UCLA region. We also have Pat King. Hi, Pat. Pat's here from UC San Diego regional office. And thank you. UC Davis. And Pat is the outreach facilitator for the Davis and Northern California regions. We also have Carol Triglio. Hi. And Carol is the outreach facilitator for the UC San Diego region. So we'll get that correct this time. And then we also have Julie Mustard, and Julie is here from UC Davis as well. And she is the site coordinator from that area to help users get navigated to using MDTP. So just real quick, briefly, MDTP is a grant-funded project that is funded under the CSU and the UCs to provide diagnostic testing and resources such as response items, as well as training and outreach free to all California secondary math educators. So if there's anything here that you want us to follow up with, go ahead and I believe Terry has on the end a contact us slide, how to get in touch with any of us. If you see something here that you really like and you want more information about, we're happy to right now Zoom with you to have meetings with your staff, your colleagues, your friends in teaching if there's something here. So without any further ado, I will hand over to Terry. Just a reminder, we do have question and answer session. The session's about 30 minutes of content. And then at the end, we'll have a question and answer. So this is a webinar, which means you can pose questions at any time that they come up. Also, we'll be asking you to chat. So as an interactive piece here, so we'll be monitoring the chat and also the questions and answers. Okay, Terry.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks for the introduction as well. As Kim mentioned, my name's Terry, and I have been a high school math teacher for 20 years almost, and then got into this County Office of Education in San Luis Obispo, and now I am a full-time assessment person. So I'm really happy to be here and share with you some information about using the MDTP diagnostic data that you gather when you give your students the assessments, and how we can link them to the written response items to support those students in potentially their unfinished learning and maybe even a few other ways. If you've joined us in the past for some of our webinars, you may recall that we have discussed the written response items, as well as a framework for using the MDTP information in a formative practice, as well as different engagement strategies. We're going to use all of those this webinar. So I want to do a quick reminder of what those were. Written response items engage students in conceptually rich problems ranging in skill sets and content from middle school through calculus. They support instruction aimed to strengthen students' understanding in a particular MDTP topic, provide insight into students' thinking and opportunities for classroom breakout room dialogue, as well as bridge performance assessment expectations. The other thing about the written response items that is not here is that they are all written by educators during our summer work group sessions. And we have a huge amount of new ones to be field tested, and I will show you how to do that at the end of the webinar. So stay tuned for that information. Next is the framework that we utilize for using the MDTP assessments formatively. And that is to one, identify students' current mathematical understandings. Where are their misconceptions or conceptions, gaps, unidentified learning opportunities, as well as where they might actually be in that process. They may actually have some great insight and opportunities to advance their learning right out of the gate, if you will. We then need to take a look and analyze and unpack the progressions of the mathematics needed based on that identification process. We need to know what is the learning progressions, what are the math progressions, what's the trajectory of those standards and the content so that they can work towards mastery. And then lastly, which we'll hopefully be able to engage in a little bit today, and that's that enact. What do you do next? How do you engage with the students in that opportunity to learn and support their learning goals? And then lastly, the types of engagement in which we have identified for the written response items. Introducing. You may want to use one of these written response items for introducing a topic when they're first learning the content or they're exploring their strategies and developing their skill sets. Maybe they've had a slight introduction, but you want to pique their interest into what this topic might be and how they might use it in their mathematical learning, as well as advancing. And that is when students have spent some time in the content and are advancing their knowledge and are incorporating diverse and flexible skill sets. This is really when you want students to begin that solidifying process of their knowledge and bring that rigor up so that they have both the conceptual and the procedural skills, maybe even using an application problem of some sort. Next is the re-engaging. This is different from reteaching in that we're going to be activating students' prior knowledge to launch a new concept and skill, or when a common misconception has been identified needs intervention. We don't want to reteach at this time though. We want to really take a look at how can we use this information just in time so that students are still engaged in on-grade level work. But we may need to take a step back and look at it through a different lens, through the conceptual and or procedural lens, to see how we can help students fill in those lulls in their learning. So let's get after it. 7th grade assessment for preparedness. This is one of our newer tests that we have available, and it helps 7th grade teachers understand what students do and do not know coming in. And as we know, fractions is one of those topics that could potentially be a gatekeeper, if you will, to future and further success in mathematics. Whatever the case may be, whether it's they don't have a strong foundation in their own conceptual understanding of how whole numbers work and they can't make that leap into the fractions, this is one of the areas in which we definitely see some need for some interventions. And as secondary teachers, we intuitively and empirically know that this rocky foundation can lead to frustration in that learning process. So let's take a look at some of the actual data from a class in regards to fractions. Here we see the summary page for one of the assessments that has been given to a class. We see that there's 31 students in this class. And looking to the right, we see our topics and our critical levels. One of the things that I look at when I look at these reports is what are the item counts, the total number of students that have met the critical level, and then we also have the percentage. And going down this list, I see that only 13% of the 31 students have met that critical level for fractions, which is not, too surprising in all actuality. However, when I take a look then at that particular group and that topic of fractions, including applications, over to the left, I see all the items that are listed there. And I've already done some pre-work here for us so that we don't have to do the full thing. But one of the things that we can do is we can click on the actual item type or the item itself. And so I have chosen item 15. One of the reasons I chose item 15 is because of the information that is in it that's going to help me and us determine which written response items to utilize to further that understanding. So when you're in the system, the MDTP platform, you can click on the bar of 19.35 above the number 15 where that red arrow is, and it will open up the item for you. And this is what you'll see. I want to give you a moment to notice and wonder about the item itself and the data that's presented. You'll notice that the green bar is the correct answer. So I'm going to give you about a minute or so to jot down a few notes and or ask yourself some notice and wonder questions. And then if you will, pop those in the chat. Let's share with each other what we're noticing and wondering. Did I stop my share? Uh-oh. Let's go back to sharing. Sorry about that. So how are we doing? Any notices, any wonderings, any ideas, any thoughts? Great observation, Emmanuel. I wondered that myself. And Emmanuel he wonders why more students chose option C than the other options. What is it about that particular one? So let's take a look at the actual. So when you click on the option C, you'll notice that there's the supporting information over there to the right. It gives us an idea of what students did wrong. What is it about that item that made them do that? And so maybe they just ordered the fractions incorrectly. They correctly identified an equivalent fraction, but then they did not actually compare the 3/8 to the 7/8. So what can we do about this? That's the question I want to know about. Let's take a look at re-engaging. Re-engaging is when a common misconception has been identified and needs innovation. And in the chat box, you should see 2 links to some written response items. Go ahead and take a moment, open those up, and I'd like you to read through them briefly. And then I'd like you to enter in the chat box how you might use one of the 2 in the classroom, what you like about the written response items, how you might use them, which one you might use over the other, and I'll come back and check in with you in about a minute. It's not clickable. Okay, unable to open this file at this time. Okay, then let's do this. What I will do is I will advance the still not big enough. Well, then let's just quickly jump over here. We'll do a stop share. We will do a reshare.
I'll check on those links real quick, Terry.
Thank you. Okay, So I want to come back over here to Zoom, and I want to share my screen. And what we will see, share screen 2, share. All right. First one is this item here. Let me blow it up a little bit. I'll give you a moment to read through this. And remember, the item itself back that we looked at was that students weren't able to successfully compare fractions. So how might this re-engage, really meet the needs of us re-engaging our students with the concepts and ideas of comparing fractions? How does this support that? Let me switch over real quick to the other one that was in the box, the chat box that weren't able to see. And I'd like you to read this one. I'll double zoom in a little bit more. And I want to know what's different about this one to the other one. All right. So I stopped sharing. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. And what I'd like to know in the chat is which one would you use first to re-engage students in that learning process? That's not my PowerPoint. There's my PowerPoint right there. Sorry about that. Which one would you use to share with students? How would you use it? Would you give it to them individually? Would you do it as a whole group? Are we not sharing my screen again? What is going on? Too many windows going on. Do you see my PowerPoint?
We do.
Okay, good.
You're good. And the links are shareable, so they're available.
Awesome. Awesome.
And Emmanuel has shared that he would use the first one first.
And why is that, Emmanuel? Why would you use that one first?
Would you like me to open his mic?
Oh, that would be awesome if you can do that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can. Thank you.
All right, I will choose the first one because the first one is asking the student to go through the process and convince someone. And that is more, okay, it's my thought. I could quickly use my thought and convince someone. But the second one, I have to verify what is this person thinking? What is this person thinking? Once I get those two together, and I can compare. But the first one is more me solving the problem and explaining to someone.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. I did too. I noticed that the first one would probably be a little bit more accessible to students right off the bat, whereas the second one is really diving into that conceptual understanding. And so maybe using them as a pre and post lesson or intervention of the re-engagement process for students and for teachers. You can use these as individual items for students to work on, or even allow them the processing time individually, but then do some group work and sharing and dialogue and discussion along with the 5 practices of orchestrating mathematical discourse in the classroom. Be a great opportunity for that. Maybe even some gallery walks if you'd like. So that's one way to use these particular written response items. And then next, let's take a look at a different test, the Integrated Second Year Readiness Test, transformations. One of the newer concepts that we're asking students to engage in at a more advanced level, if you will, fairly early on. It's not just about slides and flips and anymore. It's really about digging into the concepts of what do transformations really mean in our mathematical world. So think about these questions as we go forward. Why are transformations important? What do students struggle with in relation to transformations? And what content or topics are the foundations of transformations used? Especially in secondary mathematics, the transformations are used more widely than sometimes we might even think. So again, I've taken the liberty of diving into some data, and this particular class took the Integrated Second Year Readiness Test with 27 students. And I, on the other hand, am using this as an opportunity to find out and look at what which students know quite a bit of the information or seem to be fairly strong in this particular topic. And so I looked at the data here on the left, and I saw that this item 19 did pretty well for most of my students. So let's take a look at that item. There's the item number along with the question itself. And then I've consolidated the information for you right here on the same slide, where D is the correct answer. I know you don't know what it looks like yet, but I'll share that in a moment. I want you to get comfortable with the item itself first. You will notice that option A also drew 30% of the students to it. And so let's take a look at option A and option D. And here's what I'd like you to do here is, what is it? What's similar? What's different? What is the concern with the students and their learning in this particular instance? If you could drop that in the chat, that would be wonderful. I did it again. I hit the wrong button. I gotta quit pushing buttons. So if D is the correct response, A is the other response that drew 30% of the students, and that is the item. What can you conclude about students with option A?
So Sophia shared that it seems the students didn't focus on which axis to reflect across.
And isn't that something that we commonly see, particularly with our students that may not have had a full set or full opportunity to learn in graphing and coordinates, is confusing the X and the Y axis, which of course will hinder, if you will, their learning with the transformations themselves. So what I'd like to do is invite you to take a look at another performance task. Not performance task, sorry, written response item. And the link should be in the chat. Let us know if it doesn't work. And I will mute for a moment while you read that. So this particular written response item, think about how you might use this in the purpose of why we are looking at this particular one based on the item that we looked at in the results. Are we introducing or are we re-engaging? I would prefer to think that this could possibly be used as an introduction. Reintroducing, if you will, the topic of the basics of transformations in the coordinate grid with our students as we move into maybe a unit on congruency in geometry in the integrated second year, or maybe even functions. As we know, we do a lot of transformations with functions in the second year and first year of integrated math as well. So one of the nice things about our written response items is we also have an essence statement and when it might be used and what the expectation is of what each item represents for that learning process and the opportunities to relearn or to learn for our students or even advance our students' thinking. So I encourage you to take a look at those on the full written response items when you get to that section. I want to open it up to any thoughts on this particular written response item and how it might support that student learning and the data that we looked at. And I did it again. Kim's not going to let me play with Zoom anymore. There we go. Any thoughts that you'd like to share? All right. If there's no thoughts, then I'm going to save the best for last. And that is accessing the written response items. Because you have been vetted, you don't have to submit a request for the access to the written response items. And in the chat, we will be adding 2 new links for you to access. And one is to the written response items themselves, the ones that have been vetted and field tested and have information from how students might interact with them and all of that. And then the other link is to our newly written, ready to be field tested written response items that have been worked on over the last 2 years, and they're ready to go. So I'd love for you to take a look at those 2 websites, and I'll even stop share again on purpose this time.
While you're connecting there, Terry, I'll just let everybody know that those 2 websites look identical.
They do.
One is specifically for released items. So the first link I posted. The second link is specifically for field tests. Those are not released items yet, but we need data on. Just so you know, they look the same, but they're different.
So what you'll notice is here, they do, like, as Kim mentioned, they look identical, but the difference is up here in the title.
You're not sharing.
You're not.
I'm not sharing. There we go. All right. Is that you have the word field test up here in the title.
That's correct.
So on the regular one, you'll notice that you have your home, and then you have this drop-down menu allows us to do some suggestions for use, written response components, how they might all look, along with our scoring rubrics, as well as our engagement strategies. And then over here, items by topic. And if you just drop down, there's the fractions. Allow it to come up. And then what you'll really notice is you can pop this out as its own document, but you'll notice the modules. We have modules for students to do some self-paced learning at as well that will support maybe some unfinished learning and give you an opportunity to support those students individually in their work. But here you can also link to the actual item itself, the problem only. When I say the item itself, I mean the item, the problem statement, which is coming up, as well as the essence statement and the rubric for scoring. All of that is our gift to you for being a wonderful California educator. They're free to use. We ask that if you do share them, and you want to share these with your colleagues, ask them to sign up and go to our main website. See if I can get over there. Why am I not finding my? And ask them to fill out the form and share their email address with us, and we'll be able to get them into the site as well. And then lastly, I'm going to stop share one more time, and then I'm going to share my PowerPoint. And if you need to get a hold of us, you may do so. If I can get this out of the way. Here, let's see. Maybe.
Maybe advance your slide.
I'm trying to get to that button. There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Yep.
So the main office is there, MDTP at ucsd.edu. And then the regional offices, you notice you have quite a few throughout the state. And then at Davis, San Diego, and at UCLA, you have our outreach facilitators. Myself, Pat, and Carol. You have any questions, please post them. And if you'd like us to set up an individual or small group workshop with you, please reach out and let us know, or place a yes in the chat, and we'll be happy to reach out and schedule some time with you. Everything is remote right now, as the UC system and CSU systems are all on lockdown, if you will.
And locking down more every day.
That's right. So Kim, if you wouldn't mind just opening up the chat, maybe opening up mics.
Yeah, I've invited all of them if they'd like to open their mics up. So if we have questions, answers, go ahead and either share in the question answer. You can speak up. Since we have a pretty small group here today, we can do that. As you're thinking about questions, the field test, the link we gave you to the field test, if you happen to give those to your students, what we would love to have is some feedback so that we can release those. Score them with your students using the scoring rubric. Always do the problem first and then do the essence statement so you can kind of get a feel for what mathematically you might be looking for. But each of them come with their own scoring rubrics, and we need to know how the scoring rubrics are interactable with the educators, how they relate to them, and whether or not they are meeting the essence of the problem. And so we'd like to see one class set of your students, their actual work with a score, no other comments. We don't need to see their names. Maybe if you can scan them for us and send us a PDF file to mdtp@ucsd.edu. We can get some feedback on those, so we can release those forms. I did a lot of talking, but there's no questions.
No, sorry, quickly. No. I am not in the classroom, and I'm an assistant principal supporting my math department. How best will you guide me to help support them to use this to drive instruction to fidelity?
One way that we could support you, Manuel, is we could actually have a Zoom meeting, which is more of a workshop based, where you can put us in space with your teachers, and we have them actually do the items like a student. We have them come up with, we show them some of the strategies that we use as as Terry had suggested, the gallery walks posting, we can have them do some of those strategies. We can have them practice how it would look like in a remote setting. And then they can talk and dialogue about where they could use these. So part of the time, part of it is that they need to have the time and the space to really use the items themselves and think about it and dialogue around it. So like I said, that's all free. We've got 4 of us here that are welcome, that are ready to go out and work with your groups. We just need about an hour and a half is a really good time for this type of a workshop.
So if I'm able to set them up and just email one of you, and you will go through this same process with them.
Yes.
Right. But we'll take them into, well, they'll actually get to do a problem. So it will be more interactive.
Okay.
Yeah. The workshops that I've done like that are highly received. I've done several across the state and they really enjoy the time. And we really stress here about getting the students to write and convey their understanding, which is the whole written response item is they're really deeply communicating what their understanding is.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the question.
Emmanuel, which city are you in?
The greatest city in California, city of Compton.
Nice.
Okay,
You
so
will
Terry's
be-
your person then.
I'm your person.
Mhm.
I'm your person. So yeah, reach
If
out.
you put your, we already have it probably through the other, but if you want to put your email in the chat, I can follow up and give you some more information.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
And there's my email address that you can reach me at.
Oh, you send that to the panelists, Terry.
I did. This is a webinar, not a. Awesome. Thank you.
Are there
Oh,
any?
error. Sorry, there's an error.
Oh, okay. Any other questions? We still have a few other participants here also.
I see that.
The second one is the correct one.
Okay.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
And yours is the TGI. Is that you?
Yes, that's me.
Okay, man. I'll take that down.
And there is a link in the chat as well for a survey for feedback.
Did we put that in there yet?
It's
We
there.
did.
There it
If
is.
you could fill that out for us, that would be wonderful.
Thank you.
And I promise I'll take Zoom lessons.
Terry, you were great. Very calm.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. That's awesome. That's great.
Nothing else? Then we invite you to reach out to us and have a great rest of your evening. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.